Chapter 21. What is your life's blueprint? You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Ben's breath became shorter as nerves took control. It was the same as last time, with one exception, Ben's eyes were calm. Deep breaths, he reminded himself. He took slow inhales and exhales as everyone waited for him to start. The other students stared, some whispering amongst themselves, some shaking their heads. Can he really do it? We should just skip him. This kid's going to make a fool of himself again. Public speaking isn't for everybody. People need to know their weaknesses. Even the professor frowned, wondering if he should give Ben an excuse to avoid embarrassing himself. Miyuki clenched her fists. Zachary saw her concern and frowned. This B*TCH is about to go on a date with me and she's still worried about another man. Once I get her in my bed, I'll teach her proper manners. He leaned over to her. Miyuki, I was thinking we'd go for Italian. Do you like Italian? Miyuki didn't respond. Ben heard all the whispers. He felt all the pessimistic gazes. He ignored everything. All he focused on was calming his body. Even though he crammed in 2 years of learning experience, it didn't mean he gained 2 years of practice experience. His body needed time to adjust to the pressure. Even veteran speakers became nervous sometimes. Despite the chaos of his nerves, Ben didn't panic. He'd expected this and knew how to cope. Each deep breath he took relaxed him a little more. With shaky hands, he took a sip of water as he walked around a few steps. In his head, he went over his speech. You know the material by heart. There's no reason to be nervous. You've got this. He gave himself confident affirmations. After setting down his water, Ben clenched and released his arm muscles over and over, exhausting them so they would stop shaking. He closed his eyes and visualized a successful speech. These were all techniques Ben learned to deal with nervousness. From the perspective of the viewers, Ben was taking a long time. Zachary leaned over to the professor and said, "Professor, we should sit him down. He won't be able to do it." The professor pinched his eyebrows as watched Ben. He noticed the techniques Ben used, but trying to calm down and succeeding were two different things. Giving him more time wouldn't be fair to the others. Should I have him sit? Ben was still at the front of the class with his eyes closed, taking deep breaths. The students' mutterings became more intense. Hearing this, the professor sighed. His responsibility was to all his students. Ben couldn't have any more time. The professor leaned forward in his desk and looked at Ben with apologetic eyes. He opened his mouth to ask Ben to step down. Right then, Ben opened his eyes. As an expert in the field, the professor recognized the difference in those eyes. They were calm now. Ben wasn't nervous anymore. The techniques worked. Ben showed a calm and confident smile. It's now. His gaze circled around the room, thrusting eye contact onto every single person in the audience. After he looked at everyone, the room was dead silent. No one whispered any longer. There was something irresistible in Ben's eyes and body language. It attracted everybody's attention, stopping whatever train of thought they were on. They wanted to know what he'd do next. When the stage was set, Ben's voice emerged. With a firm cadence, he said, "I want to ask you a question." The crowd hung on to his words. "And that is, what is in your life's blueprint?" The crowd was thoughtful. Ben continued, "This is the most important and crucial period of your lives. For what you do now, and what you decide now at this age may well determine which way your life shall go. And the question is whether you have a proper, a solid, and a sound blueprint. And I want to suggest some of the things that should be in your life's blueprint." As Ben spoke, his volume increased and his tone became stronger. He gestured with his hands for emphasis. Number 1 in your life's blueprint should be a deep belief in your own dignity, your own worth, and your own somebodyness. Don't allow anybody to make you feel that you are nobody. The audience felt a rush. These were words that resonated with Ben and with every other young person in this room, all struggling to find their place in the world. 3 weeks ago, Ben was a nobody, a loser, beat down and cast aside by the world and everyone around him. A system fell on his head, but instead of a blessing, it was a guillotine. Did he give up? Did he renounce himself to die? No. Even if he died a week from now, he would still spend every day of his remaining life moving forward, fighting, and living. This was what he wished to communicate to each person here. Always feel that you count, always feel that you have worth. And always feel that your life has ultimate significance. Everyone stopped breathing. Zachary's jaw dropped. Miyuki's eyes shone. The professor sat up in his chair, his wide eyes staring at Ben. All the students felt a deep urge in their chests. Which one of them hadn't been rejected? Which one of them hadn't felt alone or afraid? These words spoke to their souls. Secondly, that in your life's blueprint, you must have, as the basic principle, the determination to achieve excellence in your various fields of endeavor. You're going to be deciding as the days and the years unfold, what you will do in life, what your life's work will be. And once you discover what it will be, set out to do it, and to do it well, as if God Almighty called you at this particular moment in history to do it. Ben paused for a moment to look everyone in the eyes again. Be a bush if you can't be a tree. If you can't be a highway, just be a trail. If you can't shine like the sun, shine like a star. For it isn't by size that you win or you fail. Be the best of whatever you are. The professor gasped. The students' hearts pumped. Their breaths short. Fists clenching. Zachary clamped the sides of his desk, feeling the situation was spiraling out of control. Miyuki's eyes grew red. Which one of them wasn't uncertain about their future? Which one of them wasn't marginalized by this huge city? Which one of them hadn't watched a dream crushed by the world's weight, forcing them to pursue a more realistic path? They wanted to excel. They wanted to feel important. Ben's final act arrived. And finally, in your life's blueprint must be a commitment to the eternal principles of beauty, love, and justice. Well, life for none of us has been a crystal stair. But we must keep moving. We must keep going. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving. Ben finished. He'd customized and recited parts of a speech by the great Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. He exhaled. It was over. The room was silent for a long time. Then, a student stood up. He gazed at Ben. Clap, clap. The student started clapping. As soon as he did, everybody woke up. Soon, the entire audience was standing. There was roaring applause. Chapter 22. Stoned to Death. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Bravo! The one shouting and clapping loudest was the professor. He'd never seen an undergrad student orate such a splendid speech. That was close to professional level. While he admired the performance for its skill, the surrounding students applauded it for a different reason. They felt something. The speech resonated with them. It gave them ideas and encouragement, evoked rare emotions and inspiration, and made them rethink aspects of their lives. It touched them. In the jaded streets of New York City, how hard was it to find something that affected them? How rare was it? Between the days filled with mundane moments, timed sunrises and sunsets eclipsed by gray skyscr.p.airs, it was sensations like these that uplifted them. That gave their world colors and rich flavor. That made life worth living. Many of them moved to New York for this. What was the point of appreciating this city's art and culture? Of deep French.I.P.S. and falling in love. To encounter things that moved them. To feel something exceptional. They found it in the most unlikely place. Even Ben's jaw dropped. The uproarious feedback was unbelievable. He hadn't delivered a proper speech to an audience since his stats leveled up, so he didn't know what to expect. Although his communication was a 5, when combining a 7 in charisma with preparation, motivation, and a topic he connected with, this was the shocking result. It was reasonable. What was a 7? The system itself said a 7 was an entry-level standard for related professions. That meant Ben had the potential to get a job related to professional speaking. Yet, this was only a 1-week seminar for undergrad freshmen. The contrast between the minimal expectation and the impassioned performance was too huge. This was the outcome. It floored everyone. Who could have expected it? As the clapping subsided, a new revelation filled the space. One by one, the audience turned their heads from Ben and gazed at Zachary. Everyone thought, wasn't he in a competition with Ben? The only sound in the room was the grinding of Zachary's teeth. Everybody here knew Ben was only a first-year student. Meanwhile, Zachary was a graduate student and teaching assistant in the class, but when comparing his speech to Ben's, not worth mentioning. Zachary turned pale. He got a bad feeling like a divine punishment was coming. All the students wore strange expressions as they threw thoughts at him like stones. Was he planning to compete with his boring rant about national security? Zachary's powerful speech became a boring rant. He spoke first so we could learn from him. What are we supposed to learn from a waste? Zachary went from best speaker to waste. This guy's a teaching assistant. He can't even beat a freshman. Who did he blackmail to get that position? Zachary was suspected of illegal activity. It wasn't his fault. He suffered from the crime of contrast. Ben was too outstanding. All eyes were on Zachary as the onlookers' gazes threw a finishing blow. Ben stuttered a week ago, but now gave such a moving speech. He must have worked hard. What were you doing? The worst part of it all was this dirt hole Zachary was neck-deep in. He dug it himself. Why did everyone know about their bet? It's because he asked people to tell them. This wasn't dropping a stone on his own foot. This was handing out stones to a mob, then getting stoned to death. Zachary's face was hideous. He couldn't cope with these student stares anymore. He looked at Miyuki. The kind and gentle Miyuki's expression gave off a different mood than usual. Don't look at me, you trash. My date. All of Zachary's plans evaporated in a puff of smoke. He'd already spent all his money on a new outfit. No. I still have a chance. Zachary had one lost hope. He'd been working as a teaching assistant for the professor for a long time. This was only a small bet in a student seminar. The professor should still award him the win to save him some face. Zachary put on a bright smile and looked at him with hopeful eyes. The professor coughed. Ben, you've delivered the best speech today. What happened to respect between colleagues? Zachary fell back in his chair. The professor was already unhappy that this teaching assistant asked to compete against a student. He wouldn't compromise his integrity by delivering an unjust evaluation to please a glorified intern. Besides, Zachary got himself in this mess. Since he wanted to slither like a serpent, he could now roll in the dirt. Chapter 23. The Divine Tao of Face. Slapping. You are listening at novelfull.audio. People get what they deserve and snakes get stomped. If you bully enough people, you're bound to run into one with a system. That's what Ben thought anyway. He didn't care about Zachary's suffering. Ben only ever shared his goodwill and mercy with beauties and animal-eared NPCs. He decided to relish in Zachary's pain and fear like Pennywise. Ben was still standing at the front of the room waiting for feedback and criticism from the audience, but what kind of criticism could they give? The professor and others showered him with praise before he returned to his seat. Since all the students had spoken, the professor gave some final words at the front. Benjamin. San, you were amazing, Miyuki whispered. Rather than watching the professor, something else captivated Ben's eyes. Target's current attraction level. Attracted. Congratulations. You've unlocked the achievement. Lost in the sauce, common. Make one woman attracted, distributing reward. PUA points plus 100, congratulations. You've unlocked the achievement. Juggling jester, common. Raise one woman's attraction level with a non-verbal activity, distributing reward. PUA points plus 100, holy sh*t. How did she jump from curious to attracted? Before he went up, Ben remembered that Miyuki's attraction level was only at curious. In that short time, it jumped 2 levels to attracted. That was 1 level from the top. How did it happen? He considered the possibilities. After a few seconds, Ben realized he'd heard something about this. Beluga had explained a woman's attraction can rise when viewing you do certain activities. The activity responsible for raising Miyuki's attraction was obvious. Ben gave a brilliant speech that blew everyone away. If you asked any person in the room, they would tell you that giving a captivating performance could attract women. It made perfect sense. Ben had a different idea. It was the face slapping. A speech was a speech, you could watch one on TV every day, but how often do you see someone get face slapped into oblivion like that? To Ben, it was a simple case of scientific observation. Oh my God! Face slapping can get women. It's not only me. Women love face slapping too. This is 2 for the price of 1. Ben felt he now understood the motivations of bullies. This must have been their goal all along. He took a step forward in his comprehension of the divine Tao of face slapping. It's a sick world, but as long as it's my hand doing the slapping that I don't mind at all. I'm going helicopter hands. Ben visualized himself with arms out as a spinning helicopter slapping everyone in his way. Many students attend their first year at university not yet knowing their passions or what they want to study. These were things they would discover at school. It was such a day for Ben. A young man found his calling. He finalized his field of study at university, face slapping. As an academic focused at IT was similar to art history in that it might be tough to find companies to hire him for this specialization. But in life, you have to follow your passion. While Ben was daydreaming, Miyuki glanced over at Zachary whose face was still green. She couldn't help but frown and find him more disgusting today. Congratulations. You've unlocked the achievement. Breaking balls, uncommon. Induce one woman to lower her attraction level for a competing man, distributing reward. PUA points plus 200, it's real. Ben even got reward points for face slapping. Ben swore to himself that if he survived next week, he'd become a better face slapper than a Hindu goddess. It was the birth of a face slapping Azura. While the diligent Ben planned his future study path, a bell rang in the building signaling the end of the last lecture. The first one to leave wasn't a student, but Zachary, who told the professor he felt unwell before running out the door. It was believable. The professor said nothing, because he also saw how Zachary got D***ked all up and down. When the students left, the only ones remaining were the professor, Ben, and Miyuki. Before leaving, the professor exchanged personal contacts with Ben, only saying he might call him about a potential opportunity soon. When only Ben and Miyuki remained, Miyuki became nervous. She realized she had a problem. While the university didn't forbid an RA to date an undergrad, the school frowned upon it. Ben also lived in her floor, which made it worse. Still, why did the idea make her a little excited? Ben considered how to proceed. Should I ask her for a date tomorrow? No, Beluga said I can't come across as desperate. Ben felt the hot coals of the system's deadline burning his feet from below, but he knew this required patience. Otherwise, his eagerness would be a turn off and he'd ruin everything. He exchanged numbers with Miyuki, saying he'd call her soon. Then he walked out. Ben had a pressing matter to take care of because Santa was about to deliver a gift under his Christmas tree. 750 points. That's how many Ben saved. The previous bonuses put him over the edge. It was time to get another mystery box. Chapter 24. Traumatizing a stranger. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ben was in the best and most private place for an unboxing, sitting on a toilet stall in a public bathroom. Well, it was the best place he could find. Since he didn't plan to return to his dorm yet and it was too out of the way, he stopped in here. He hoped this men's bathroom would be the location of his great turnaround. Ben could be patient with women but forget about other situations. He only had 8 days to live. So he needed every edge possible. As Ben focused on his system screen, he didn't notice another student entering the bathroom and walking to the sink in silence. Thinking he was alone, Ben began sweet-talking the system, hoping it would get him a better item. Come on baby. Do it for daddy. Make me feel good. The eavesdropping student froze. He turned around and looked towards Ben's stall. His first suspicion was there was a girl in there with him, but when he saw only one pair of feet at the bottom, the suspicion became disgust. A pervert viewing porn. Then the student shook his head. No, I shouldn't judge a person by one random comment. Maybe he's watching a penalty shot in a sports event. Daddy's paying 500 big ones to see this. Your box better be worth it. It's porn. He's a pay.pig on a cam site. Then the student shook his head again. No, maybe he's buying some VIP package in a mobile game. Come on baby. Show me your skills. Bastard. I gave you the benefit of the doubt. The student felt foolish for believing in Ben. Then he sighed. Whatever. It's a free country. He can watch whatever he wants as long as he doesn't disturb others. Okay, I'm ready. I'm going to put it in. Ben input 500 points. Now I'm disturbed, USCU.M. The student didn't want to know what Ben would put where. He prepared to run out the door when he stopped in his tracks, because something unbelievable caught his attention. He looked up to see a magical shooting star. A banana peel flew over the student's head and smacked against the mirror. Several moments later, it slid down in slow motion. No doubt, this thing came from Ben's stall. OSH*T, it slipped out. Forget disgusted. The student was now horrified. What just happened was like the terrifying twist at the end of a horror movie, but things got even worse. He knew who the killer was, but there was a new victim. Where is the banana? What did you do to the banana, you sick bastard? Damn. If I don't get laid this week, I'm going to die. F***CKKKKK. Ben was too busy cursing to hear the panicked footsteps and slamming door of the student exiting. Ben also wanted to know where the banana was. All he got was this. Banana peel, item, trash, X1, it was a literal piece of trash. He sighed. I guess my good luck couldn't last forever. He expected this since he received great consumables before. 2 fine and 1 rare. Those were all above average. It wasn't possible to keep getting such good things. It was unfortunate this happened when he was running out of time, but what could he do? Instead of being down, Ben tried to stay positive. It's alright, I'll still have more chances. My mission isn't to get rare loot, but seduce a woman, so as long as I can pull that off in 8 days, I won't complain about anything else. Ben walked out of the stall and looked at the banana peel still sliding down the mirror. Examining it, he found it to be a normal banana peel. The only thing unusual was it was under the item category, which Ben never saw before. He wasn't sure of the implications of that. Watching it leave a trail on the mirror, he guessed items could interact with people and the environment but wasn't sure. He put the issue aside since he would find out at some point. Ben also took the banana peel with him in case it proved useful. If not, he would throw it out later. Brushing off his failure, he left the building. Ben had an appointment to meet Beluga and his cousin now. That's where he needed to focus his energy. With them, he would make more approaches, and gain more information. He had some phone numbers now and even a pending date with Miyuki, but he was clueless as far as where to go and what to say on those dates. He hoped Beluga would shine light on the subject. With an optimistic mindset, Ben set off to meet his friends. His eyes were sharp and eager. They were the eyes of a man starving for success, a man would do anything to survive. The eyes of a predator. Some distance away, a student Ben didn't know was reliving today's trauma. Congratulations. You've unlocked the achievement. S.E.Zul Predator, Uncommon. Intimidate someone to tears with your sex.u.a.l deviancy, distributing reward. PUA points plus 200. Chapter 25. Ronald McDonald learns about Insta.dates. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When the system delivered Ben 200 points out of the blue, he figured it must have been giving him a partial refund for that trash banana peel. That must have been it. He hoped that was it. Ben exited the subway station into Union Square, a famous plaza in Manhattan. It was one of the bustling landmarks of the city. As he walked around, he took in the sights. Old men playing chess, artists selling paintings, musicians playing melodies. In the middle of this hotspot of art and culture, stood a purple grimace from McDonald's, also known as Beluga. Antonio was there as well, wearing a striped black and white shirt. Is Antonio the Hamburglar? Ben looked down at his own clothes. A yellow sweater with red trim. OSH*T. And I look like Ronald MCF** King Donald. It was a complete accidental McDonald's theme night. He shook his head, unsure if this was a good or bad sign. The three caught up and Ben asked about some issues he had. Per Beluga's advice, Ben didn't call Katie, the pink-haired girl, for a few days after he took her number. In fact, he didn't call at all, he texted her 3 days later. Since then, they had a few text exchanges. Ben held off asking her out because she made it clear she was busy last week. So he planned to set it up this week. As for the two other numbers, one fizzled out in conversation and the other didn't respond at all. He asked Beluga why this happened. Beluga answered, that's just how it goes. Females are flaky. Even if a female seemed very into you, it doesn't mean it'll go anywhere. They're like cats, and in New York there's yarn flying in every direction. He sighed. That's the nature of the game. To a certain degree, luck has to be on your side so that nothing gets in the way. Another issue is that you can't seem desperate, but you can't wait too long either. You have a limited time to turn a number into a meeting because the life of a number lead degrades. If you wait too long, it'll die. How long until a lead dies? Ben asked. Beluga shrugged. Depends. Sometimes 1 or 2 weeks. Sometimes a couple of hours. Females have short memories. Unless they're very into you, you could say they like to leave things to fate. If they don't meet you before your impression weakens on them, they'll put you into the ill-fated category in their minds and forget about you. It doesn't matter why they didn't meet you, because females don't think with logic, but with emotion. Then they rationalize things after they happen. Ben realized he needed to jump on getting these dates set up with Katie and Miyuki. If he procrastinated any longer, he could lose those leads, and then his life as a consequence. Antonio added something. That's why the best thing is an Insta.date. Insta.date? Ben asked. Rather than get a number and suffer the chance of the chick flaking or the lead dying, you can try to get a date right away. Ben's ears perked up. How would you pull that off? Antonio said, look around. What do you see outside the square? Ben looked at the streets lining the sides. There were many shops, restaurants, bars, coffee places. His eyes flickered in understanding. Antonio nodded. You got it. One option is to have a chick join you for a quick coffee. That would count as a first date, skip the whole troublesome step of converting a number into an actual meeting. Ben asked, will they agree? Beluga answered. If they're not in a rush to get somewhere, it isn't too much harder than getting digits. The key is to appear assertive, but not needy. Antonio, you've been practicing this. Why don't you give Ben an example? Antonio's eyes became bright, flaring with confidence. He approached a woman who was admiring some artwork. After several minutes of back and forth banter, he pointed behind him to a Starbucks. With little hesitation, she nodded her head with a smile. The two of them entered the coffee shop and joined the line. Ben's eyes were wide. The last time he watched Antonio do an approach, it ended in a bald eagle cry and women fleeing into the wilderness. Antonio must have been practicing because this current approach was impressive. He got her into an Insta-date on the first try. Ben and Beluga walked into the Starbucks, sitting down at a table so they could observe. Antonio's interaction was going great. While they waited in line, he made the woman laugh, and soon they received their coffees and sat down. 1 minute later, the woman excused herself and walked out, leaving a sad Antonio staring into his coffee. Things went south so fast. Ben was still in disbelief. Beluga added, yeah, I'm curious what his strategy was there. Ordering a venti ice water with 7 pumps of pumpkin sauce and the whipped cream on top. It was the beginning of the end. Ben frowned in disgust. Don't forget the 8 Splenda packets he added by hand when they sat down. Beluga shook his head. That was not a good look. The final straw was when he literally took out the straw and started licking off the whipped cream in slow motion with his eyes closed. Ben nodded. And the groan he uttered while doing it, they both shivered. What was he thinking, they wondered. All three sat in silence for a long time. Chapter 26. Motivating a woman with words. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I like what I like. Antonio wouldn't budge when Beluga suggested he order a cappuccino next time as the three walked in the noisy, crowded streets of Union Square. Ben found it admirable. I can respect that Antonio won't change who he is to fit in. That's how a man should be. He cut his thoughts short as he slapped the straw out of Antonio's hand. Can you not lick it? I don't want to vomit. How am I supposed to get to the whipped cream at the top of the cap, Ben? That's what the straw is for. Antonio yelled. That's not what it's for. All Ben's respect vanished, buried under the pile of loathing for Antonio's mannerisms. Beluga diffused the situation. I think Ben got the point of how to get an Insta-date. In that regard, you did a good job, Antonio. Antonio smiled with pride. He also held another straw in his mouth from God knows where, slurping the last drops of liquid at the bottom of the cup. Ben frowned in disgust. TCH, forget it. I'm going to try for an Insta-date. Ben looked for women in the vicinity. There was one sitting on the concrete steps listening to music, so he approached her. Beluga and Antonio watched from a distance. The woman responded well to Ben's opener. A few minutes later, he pointed her to Starbucks and she followed him there. Beluga and Antonio were both speechless. They didn't expect Ben to succeed on his first try. This was the difference between 0 and 7 charisma. They followed Ben into the Starbucks and watched for developments. Ben waited online with the woman and ordered 2 drinks for them. When Beluga and Antonio saw this, they shook their heads. Ben sat down with the woman and tried making conversation. However, her demeanor changed, she became cold and distant. 5 minutes later, she excused herself and left. Filled with confusion, Ben went over to his friends and asked if they knew the problem. It's simple, Beluga answered. You bought her a drink. Ben squinted. What's the big deal? It's just a coffee. Beluga snorted. That's what it looks like to you, in your logical brain. Do you know what it looked like to her? Ben was silent. It appeared like you were buying her a drink so she would spend time with you. It lowered your value, making you look weak. It seems ridiculous, but this is how many females in Western countries view men who buy them drinks. It's the same whether alcohol or coffee. As a general rule, buying a female a drink is a great way to turn yourself into her drink sponsor. That's a guy she doesn't respect who goes home alone at the end of the night. Don't be that guy. Ben stared into his drink, thoughtful. Beluga added, this varies with cultures. In countries with higher feminism, most females view men who buy them anything as weak. She's not your wife. Why should you purchase anything for her? What's more is feminist females take pride in paying for their own things. So rather than having them complain about you being patronizing, let them pay. He remembered something else. Actually, in more patriarchal countries such as the Slavic and some Latin American nations, it can be the opposite. Many females there expect men to take charge, including of the finances. So if you can't pay for a drink, you come off as a broke loser. There are other exceptions, but I'm getting off topic. Beluga continued. You'll find out about all that when you travel to those countries someday. The key is, here in America, don't pay for females' drinks. In fact, some females will *T test you by asking you to buy them a drink. You need to defuse that by saying something like, I don't give candy to strangers, or I don't buy girls drinks, but you can buy me one. Another option is to get a drink but tell her to share it with you because you'd like to not drink too much. Ben got the gist of it. He never heard that before. In movies and TV, it was common to see men offering to buy women drinks. A lot of on-screen romances started like that. Now, Ben understood TV wasn't the best place to get advice from. Many of the things he learned in the recent past were counterintuitive, but verified to be correct through his experience. At least, Beluga hadn't steered him wrong so far. Ben scanned around for a new target and approached. The next few didn't go well. Either the women were uninterested or they were too busy to grab a coffee with him, but Ben kept at it. He spotted a girl standing outside a clothing store, looking through the glass display. Ben opened her. A few minutes later, the two of them were inside Starbucks getting coffees. This time, Ben only ordered for himself and allowed the girl to pay for her own drink. She didn't mind at all and acted like it was normal. That's when Ben understood Beluga was right. The two of them sat down and Ben received a pleasant surprise. Congratulations. You've unlocked the achievement. Fool's Gold, common. Get a woman to go on a date with you, distributing reward. PUA points plus 100, why couldn't I be real gold? Ben wanted to curse but cheered up when he saw the points. Congratulations. You've unlocked the achievement. Insta, date, insta, regret, uncommon. Get a woman to go on a date within 5 minutes of meeting you, distributing reward. PUA points plus 200, BVEC, there's no regret. Not yet. TCH. The system could talk all the *T it wanted as long as it kept feeding him points. That put him at 750. Ben's mood improved, but when he refocused on the girl, he realized he still had a problem. Ben was getting decent at opening and building attraction now, but what should he say on a date? The vibe felt different. When the previous girl left after only a few minutes, it wasn't only because Ben bought the coffee. Another reason was that his attempts at conversation weren't working. He kept making jokes and teasing her to build attraction, but something was off. As the girl sipped her coffee, waiting for Ben to say something, Ben clenched his jaw. Forget it. Don't overcomplicate things. Your charisma is 7. Use your charm and motivational speaking to win her over. Ben put his hands on his knees in a serious posture. The girl looked on in anticipation. Ben's body language and eye contact captivated her. It looked like he had something interesting to say and she was eager to know what it was. Will he ask about my hobbies? My goals for the future? My hopes and dreams? Ben gazed deep into her eyes. Channeling all his charisma and speaking ability, he motivated her with his words. Have sex with me. Do it. As the girl walked out, at a nearby table, Beluga and Antonio were frozen in facepalm. Chapter 27. Unlocking Comfort. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. I'd be open to a different method. Ben understood the importance of staying open-minded. It seemed his motivational speaking wasn't at the requisite level yet. Beluga squinted at him. I'd sure *King hope so. That's not what you say in the first minute of a date. Once you're at that stage, it's all about building comfort with the female. Comfort? Ben asked. It's what it sounds like, Beluga replied. You have to make the female feel comfortable with you. Other terms for that are getting to know each other or building a connection. How comfortable she is determines how she views your relationship. Comfort is necessary for a female to trust you, go somewhere private with you, and develop a romantic relationship. Attraction and comfort are both necessary, but for the most part mutually exclusive. He continued, if you have comfort, but no attraction, that's how you get trapped in the notorious friend zone. His voice became solemn at the end as if speaking Voldemort's name. If you have attraction, but no comfort, the interaction will also burn out and not go anywhere. Most females won't be willing to escalate physically with you if they don't feel they can trust you. Of course, there's one important exception. The faces of Beluga and Antonio became serious. They sat in silence for several moments, as if in reverence for some great being. Then, at the same time, they whispered, the legendary S.L.U.T.S. Beluga exhaled, regaining his composure. S.L.U.T.S. don't need comfort. It's even a turn off for them. They only want someone attractive. Since you can skip the toughest stage of comfort with them, they're the easiest targets for CX, but nothing more. Antonio added, another way to look at it is they're only good for sex. You can't have a relationship with A.S.L.U.T, cause they lack the self-control to stay loyal. Beluga nodded. As far as S.L.U.Ts go, that's the gist. Oh, there is one additional thing, a special type of S.L.U.T, a tier above, the evolved form of the S.L.U.Ts. Ben and Beluga exchanged glances. Their eyes shone like they were speaking of heroes or gods. Then, in unison, they muttered the glorious title, the mythical drunk S.L.U.Ts. Recovering from his excited breathing, Beluga swallowed. Drunk S.L.U.Ts even cut down the necessary attraction. Sometimes, you only need to be in their vicinity and they'll do all the work. Man, that's the life. Beluga stared into the distance, into some dream-like space, a beautiful world without war and full of S.L.U.Ts. He didn't wake up until Ben waved a hand in front of his face. Ben said, I get it. You guys like S.L.U.Ts. Let's get back on topic. How do you build comfort? Beluga answered. The simplest way is to ask questions. You can also tell her about you, but most people are more interested in talking about themselves. Ask about the normal stuff. Hobbies, music, movies, interests, family, travel, etc. There are advanced techniques, but start with those basics. Keep in mind that in a typical situation, comfort takes much more time to build than attraction. It can take anywhere from several hours to a few dates to build a decent level of trust. Ben nodded in understanding. At that moment, he received a system alert. User has unlocked favorability sub.system. Comfort. Ben squeezed his fists in excitement. He was moving in the right direction. He was grateful to Beluga and Antonio, thanks guys. I understand. I'd like to try again. The three of them left Starbucks and went outside. After searching for a while, Ben found a beautiful and interesting target. There was a girl sitting alone on a beach towel in an isolated area on the grass, drawing something in a sketchbook. Her blonde hair shined in the sun. It hung over her shoulders above a bikini top. Although it was a warm day, it was approaching October and she was showing a lot of skin. There was a juxtaposition between the liberal outfit and her solitary demeanor, evident from her segregating herself in a remote area. That revealed an unusual personality. More importantly, it revealed large brie A.S.Ts. Big tits blonde. Ben was too distracted to notice the personality thing. He wasn't a multi-tasker. He took a little while to think of an ideal opener. His instincts told him that a standard opener wouldn't be too effective. Since the girl isolated herself, she probably wouldn't like if someone bothered her. So unless he said something intriguing, there was a good chance the opener wouldn't stick. Hearing the bestial roar of a passing motorcycle, Ben had an idea. He approached the girl with slow, steady steps, as if he was approaching a great master to become his disciple, or making a request of a legendary smith. The girl looked up from her sketchbook when she noticed a shadow appearing above her. Her big blue eyes gazed up at Ben, uncertain what this solemn-looking stranger wanted. Ben stared at her with sincere eyes. With his most respectful tone, he used his opener. "Can you draw me as a dragon?" Chapter 28. Destiny and Spirit Animals. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The blonde girl stared at Ben, speechless for several moments. Then she giggled. "Are you serious?" It's my spirit animal. A psychic told me if I could commune better with it, my destiny would cover the earth. Her suggestion was to seek a legendary artist. Beluga gave Ben a tip once. He said girls love talking about fantasy elements like destiny, horoscopes, spirit animals, and vampires. So Ben was trying to incorporate it. Ben's motivational speaking was so good that the girl believed he was serious. "Oh. And how do you know I'm a legendary artist?" He captured her attention. Target's current attraction level. Curious, Ben said, "Your spirit animal. A telltale sign." Her eyes flashed with interest. "And what animal is that?" He put on a face of reverence, as if speaking of a great and noble creature. "Disco frog." The girl wasn't sure if she should laugh or curse. With a lopsided grin, she asked, "Really? A frog?" Ben nodded. "Don't belittle the legendary might of the disco frog. It has tremendous creative power. And cute dancing." Now she couldn't help but break out into laughter. "I can't tell if he's kidding or if he's crazy. Still, he came up to me so respectfully, and no one's ever called me a legendary artist before. It's hard to reject someone that compliments you." Ben learned this in his studies on influencing people in motivational speaking. The caveat with girls is that you can't compliment their beauty. It has to be something else. There are a few reasons for this. First, too many guys compliment their beauty. It's tacky. Second, every woman wants to believe there's more to her than her looks. If you compliment something unusual, it will make her feel you're appreciating her personality. Third, and most important, Ben's looks were too *T*Nav he hit on cuties. So almost every woman he spoke to was better looking than him. If he mentioned her looks, the first thing she would think about was his looks, or his lack of looks. That would be foolish. A basic rule of life is to emphasize your strengths and avoid your weaknesses. That kind of direct opener complimenting looks only works if you have better looks or higher overall value than the woman. It would be better to focus on something else. Legendary artist. Why not? Seeing Ben stayed in a sincere pose, the girl went with it for now. "Okay. I'll draw your spirit animal. I've never seen a real dragon before though. I'm not sure if I could draw it properly." "Of course you haven't. That would be ridiculous. Everyone knows dragons are endangered. She blinked many times. Endangered. We'll do it this way. Show me some of your drawings and I'll point out the appropriate style. Ben sat down next to her and looked at her sketchbook, expecting her to begin the slideshow. The girl was a little uncomfortable that Ben got so close to her, but something about his assertive nature made her follow his lead. She showed her sketches. This was another concept Ben learned from motivational speaking. It related to influencing people in sales, a move called, assuming the sale. Here's how it worked. If you framed a request as a statement and not a question, declared it with confident body language, and acted like you expected the person to do it, then most of the time, they would go with the flow. This is the case even if they had slight reservations. That's what happened with this girl. The two began looking at her sketches, talking, and laughing. Once in a while, Ben would stop her, mixing in compliments about her art, as well as teasing. Wait, you don't have any strange nude sketches of strangers, do you? That must be why you're out here, undressing people with your eyes. Ben nodded in understanding. No. I make normal sketches. The girl laughed. A few more of these and she was slapping his arm in a playful manner. She acted upset, but was in truth charmed, shortening their emotional distance with each cute response. Target's current attraction level. Interested, after a while, Ben's instincts told him it was time to make a move. So he said the feng shui of the area wasn't right, and they should relocate to a cafe. That he said this with a straight face like a pro. Gripped by Ben's charm, the girl agreed. Insta.date secured. The spot they were sitting in wasn't bad, but Ben preferred moving because it would assert his control. That would later help him guide the conversation and build proper comfort, which is what he needed to focus on now. The comfort level lagged behind attraction. It didn't change at all throughout that entire conversation. Target's current comfort level. Stranger. As they walked to Starbucks, Ben changed the subject from the dragon sketches to other things. They talked about why she was drawing there in the park and he gained more information about her. Her name was Annabelle and she was an art student. As for the whole matter of the spirit animal, legendary artist, and the disco frog, it was ancient history. She brought it up once and Ben responded with, "Are you still on that? That's old news. Let's focus on the future." Spirit animal. What the hell was that anyway? Ben was trying to meet beauties. Earlier, Beluga and Antonio showed delighted smiles when they observed Ben sitting and chatting with Annabelle. The baby bird had flown his coop. The patient mentors watched on in pride. That patience lasted about 2 minutes before it was overwhelmed by primal degeneracy. They also wanted to get their beaks wet. The two of them were already doing their own approaches. As Ben walked into the Starbucks, he even saw Beluga entering with a woman not far behind him. They were using the Starbucks like an office. While chatting with Annabelle, Ben ordered his coffee, but he didn't have to say what he wanted anymore. He'd been there so many times in a brief span that the staff knew it by heart already. The only thing they didn't know, which was on all of their minds, was why did McDonald's characters keep bringing different women in there every 10 minutes? Some employees took photos and spread them on social media. Memes emerged. Gigolo grimace. The McDonald's crew needs love too. Hamburglar 2.0. From burglar to sex.u.a.l predator. The McDonald's stock dropped that day for no apparent reason. Chapter 29. Points. Digger. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Don't get friend.zoned. Don't get friend.zoned. Don't get friend.zoned. Ben repeated the mantra in his head as he listened to Annabelle speak. It was time to build comfort, but Beluga told him the attraction needed to be high enough. Her current attraction level was interested. He hoped that was sufficient. The reason he spent so long chatting before was to build the attraction. Of course, he also guessed he could continue building attraction along with comfort, but this was his first time doing it, so he wasn't sure. What do you do for fun besides draw? Whenever Annabelle stopped talking, Ben asked her something else to get to know her. Where do you study? Are you from New York? What places do you like in the city? Their conversation continued like this for a while. Whenever she answered him, he followed up with more questions on some detail in her answer. Then he'd drink his coffee while she talked. While Ben gazed deep into her eyes, Annabelle thought, feels like I can tell him anything. He's such a good listener. As she told him about her passion for travel, Ben nodded and wondered, is the new season of Lucifer out yet? It wasn't his fault. Building comfort took too long. It was impossible for anyone to maintain concentration listening that long without drifting off. While he could raise attraction within a few minutes or even seconds, her comfort level only increased after 45 minutes. That was almost a full episode of Breaking Bad. Target's current comfort level. Acquaintance. It took longer to become her acquaintance than for Walter White to become a meth cook. It felt like an endurance trial, but at least Ben had something to show for it. Congratulations. You've unlocked the achievement. Desperate Orbiter, common. Make yourself an acquaintance to one woman, distributing reward. PUA points plus 100. He didn't have time to celebrate the points because he discovered a problem: he was getting tired. He must have been crashing from too much coffee. Reminding himself to order tea in the future, Ben had to end it here, or he'd yawn during the story of her volunteer work. The next move wasn't difficult and he got her number. Give me your number. I'd like to take you out sometime. This kind of confident, assertive line wasn't something Ben could have said without stuttering a week ago. His higher communication and charisma, as well as his greater experience, helped him say it in a seamless manner. The reason Ben said it like this was Beluga mentioned it was better to make his intentions known. This way, he would spend less time beating around the bush. Most women also preferred men that didn't hide their desires and were direct. Though that only went for attractive men. Have the same come from someone ugly and a woman won't call him confident. She'll call him a stalker. Of course, Beluga also mentioned that even without being direct, there existed many ways to maneuver one's way into a woman's bed through the power of friendship. As a scholar, Ben was also interested in these. For research purposes, of course, just to preserve knowledge. Really. Although he didn't show it, it surprised Ben when Annabelle gave him her number without a second thought. It was much easier this time than all the numbers he got before. He assumed it was due to the higher comfort. That made logical sense. Someone wouldn't give a second thought to giving a number to someone close to them, but with a stranger, they'd at least hesitate. Out of nowhere, a system alert for stats interrupted Ben's thoughts. His face became serious as he got up, said a quick goodbye to Annabelle, and walked out. Talking to her was great. He'd love to get to know her more, but would she give him stat points? No. Ben was a points digger and he wasn't ashamed of it. On his way out, he took a last glance at Annabelle. Love isn't enough in this day and age. Daddy likes the fancy things in life. The system was Ben's sugar mommy. Annabelle would need to step up her points game if she wanted some of that booty. Love was invented by people poor in points. With a cold face, Ben walked out the door, hardening his soul to survive in this cruel material world. Ben looked at his changed stat. Seduction skills. 2. Drunk fatties are not completely immune to your abilities. That I know baby steps are necessary, but is this supposed to be positive reinforcement? If Ben wasn't certain the stat was a 1 before, he wouldn't be sure if it improved considering this description. Forget it. Haters gonna hate. A stat point was still a stat point. His hard work paid off. Ben waited for Beluga and Antonio to finish their interactions before saying goodbye to them. He felt dead tired and needed to go home to take a nap. There was another reason Ben desired to go back. When he checked his stats, something besides the seduction skills boost caught his attention: 850 points. It was enough for another mystery box. No fruits. No fruits. No fruits. A new mantra for a new occasion. Chapter 30. Club Rat's Fake ID. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Slap. Ben slapped himself to calm down. Get a hold of yourself. It was just a nightmare. He dreamed all of his mystery boxes open trash for the next week, 8 days expired, and he was crushed to death by a giant banana peel. He was nervous that his next lottery would give him trash again, and it even haunted his dreams. He sighed. There's nothing I can do. I should just focus on ACCU.mulating points. I'll get what I get. Even if it's trash, it doesn't mean I'll die. I already have 2 potential dates. Before going to sleep, Ben texted Miyuki and pink-haired Katie to set up dates with them. Miyuki said she wasn't available for a few days, but Katie agreed to meet tomorrow. When he recalled that, Ben's mood improved. He got out of bed and stretched. Feeling refreshed, Ben decided to open a mystery box. A few minutes later, he was squinting, looking down at a plastic card in his hand. Club Rat's Fake ID, item, fine, X1. Ben wasn't sure if he should laugh or cry. It was a fine quality item, and a fake ID would be useful for him, but the photo. Why is it Danny DeVito? The photo was a selfie of Danny DeVito's grimacing head, and not in his youth. Very recent. In fact, it looked like it was taken on the toilet yesterday during a bout of constipation. Am I supposed to use this? This guy's 75 years old. Ben wanted to throw it in the trash but stopped when he read the description. Club Rat's Fake ID, item, fine, X1. Guaranteed to be accepted as your ID under certain conditions. When Ben asked the system, he learned that it would work only at nightlife venues, and no one else could use it. Ben had to double-check, then triple-check the ID against the text. Will this really work? There are a lot of problems here. The ID said he was 75, bald with gray hair at the temples, and 4'10". I'm short, but I'm not 4'10". You couldn't find anyone with a closer resemblance. This damn system was mocking him. Then when he saw the name that he completely lost it. It said Benny DeVito. After taking deep breaths for a long time, Ben eased his anger. He stared at the ID. If the system hadn't verified it, he wouldn't believe any place would accept this ID. How would it even function? Would it scramble the brains of anyone who checked it? Otherwise, who would accept that Ben was 75 years old? He could only sum it up as a magical alchemy item. Only, all alchemy had a price, and the price for using this was his dignity. Still, as long as it worked, Ben would swallow his pride. His dignity hadn't stopped him from being AV.I.R.G.I.N for 18 years. So what good was it? Ben would sell his dignity for a booty call. Also, this fake ID was very helpful to him. One thing that's been troubling Ben is he's had nothing to do at nights. Approaching girls at night wasn't effective since he wouldn't get into anywhere. So he's been wasting precious time. Many other students had access to parties. They either had fake IDs, pledged fraternities, or had friends with dorms or apartments they partied in. Ben had none of these. So he hadn't been able to make good use of his nights to pick up women. With this ID, that would change. Ben looked at the time. He'd slept for 2 hours, making it early evening now. There was still plenty of time to get ready and go out somewhere to test this ID. The only problem was where should he go? Ben knew nothing about the nightlife scene in New York. Despite that, after some thought, he knew who might. His cousin Antonio was 21. He grew up in New York and would know much more about it than Ben, so he called him up. When Antonio heard Ben got his hands on a fake ID, he was speechless at first. It was hard to believe his cousin got his hands on something so useful. Since that was the case, Antonio said something to Ben that was even better than advice. Antonio offered to take him out that night. Antonio felt it was what he should do as a cousin and friend. He knew the perfect place to take Ben, and it was even near his dorm. Ben's dorm was only a block from one of Manhattan's famous nightlife areas. So there were many venues in the vicinity. Ben didn't know where Antonio wanted to take him, but he reasoned that his cousin's judgment couldn't be too bad. Probably. They agreed to meet an hour later in front of Ben's dorm, hung up, and got ready. Ben's eyes glowed with excitement. He hadn't been to a party since he was 13, and that was Adam Schwartz's bar mitzvah. The nightlife scene was opening her s.l.u.tty legs to him at last. He looked into the bathroom mirror as he checked his clothes, putting on his best smile. Ben rehearsed expressions and various poses. I should go over some lines so I'll be in form when I'm out. Looking at his reflection, he put on a confident smirk. Hey there, what's your name? Oh, interesting name. Me. I'm Benny Bevy. Foo**k. That ID even scrambled his brain.